everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. Today we are heading back to my yellow 1860s ball gown project, and it currently looks like this. Now, when I last left you, I had just put the piping around the neckline, but I hadn't hand sewn it down yet, and I had not yet put the piping on the arm size. So that is now done, both the piping and the arm size, and also you can see that this is all sewn down on the inside, which means that the bodice really just needs, I think, sleeves and trim, and it needs the butt bow attachment, because that's actually going to be attached to the bodice, and therefore the hooks that go with that butt bow in the back. However, I need to try all of that on before I can really move on with anything there. And I figure I might as well do skirts in the meantime, because that was the other place where we left off, was the skirt pieces. I had cut out the silk and I'd cut out one of the flatlining pieces. I am flatlining all of this with cotton organdy from Vogue Fabrics. And I had only cut out the one, I hadn't cut out the rest. So at this point I have now cut out the rest of it, and all of these are flat lined, which means that I just go around it with my serger around all of the edges, and now I have to sew them all together. So right here I've got the 3 front pieces pinned together ready to be sewn. I will of course be adding pockets into that. So the pockets are going to go between the side fronts and the side back pieces, and just like standard installation of inseam pockets, nothing special there. And then the opening for the skirt is going to be in the very center back. The 2 center back panels are just 2 big like rectangular panels, basically the whole width of the fabric. So yeah, that's how that is going to go together. I am going to sew all of that together right now, and then I should be able to put that on a waistband. At that point the skirt becomes a lot more complicated, because I have to starch my petticoats, because like I really can't work on the hem or even the ruffle section of this without starching the petticoats. I think, like, I'm pretty sure I need to starch the petticoats before I add the ruffle, but I might cheat. We'll see, because I prefer to starch my petticoats when I can hang them up outside, and the next day that's going to have any sun whatsoever is Saturday. Today's Tuesday, and I feel like I'm going to get to the point of needing to proceed with this skirt before Saturday, but we'll see, who knows. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and sew all of those skirt pieces together and put them on a waistband, and I will touch base with you when something more interesting happens than regular skirt construction. All of the panels and pockets are now assembled, so I just have this enormous amount of fabric that's all together, and I have been going back and forth on whether I wanted to like cartridge pleat, regular pleat, maybe even gather, etc. But I think that since I am using the skirt pattern that is in Patterns of Fashion 2, which is the one on page, well, for the new edition it's on page 88, but it is the one that has this bodice, that one right there. And because I'm using this is what I used to size up my skirt panels. I talked about that in the last video. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and pleat it, because that's what it is in this pattern. And so they're really, really deep pleats, but I figure since the shape of the skirt is correct, like, let's just go ahead and stick with what was done in this one. Even though I did not do my pockets like this at all, by the way, I'm not exactly positive how this pocket works. It's a very weird shape. It's this shape. Yeah, not sure how that works. So I just went with normal pockets. But yeah, I'm gonna do those really, really large knife pleats, because that's what they are. They are, I think, entirely knife pleats. I think there's like one box pleat, because this one right here, they go together. This would wind up being like on the side, they go together, and otherwise they are box pleated with, in the back, what's different for me, because I normally have my pleats going all the way around to the center back and like box pleating in the center back. This actually has it going kind of opposite. We're going to the front, the center front like this. And in fact, actually, we just have like 2 pleats that are going to the back. So I think I'll change this up a little bit, because I don't really like this weird mixed pleat direction thing. So I think I'm still gonna have my pleats going to the back, because that's what personally makes more sense to me. But I will use this as kind of an idea of scale, because again, these are very deep pleats. So I better go put the correct hoop skirt on the dress form, because I have the other one on there right now. and some petticoats, and I'm gonna go pleat for a long time and get it down to the length of my waistband. The pleats are currently basted in place on the skirt. I was going with a like 8 square motif between pleats, and then they just get deeper in the back. But to be honest, I feel like it seems very full in this front area here and a lot less full in the back. Granted, it's hard to actually fit this in my room, really. So like right now it is hitting up against the shelves over there. So maybe that's the problem. Maybe I just need to spin it around and see about the back, but I'm slightly worried that I maybe need to change my pleat pattern and shove more to the back. This is an elliptical hoop skirt, so obviously there's a lot more volume that needs to go over the back than there is in the front. But that said, I think I have maybe too much volume, period, on this, because it dawned on me as I was putting this on the form like this, that when I was doing my math in my last video of like how big should the hem circumference be to go over this size hoop, I forgot about the fact that this also gets a ruffle. Yeah, this is gonna be so full. But at this point, I don't really want to make it smaller, so I guess it's just gonna be really full. Also, the petticoat isn't starched yet, so like that will take up more of the fullness, but yeah, it's very full. Well, I have spun her around so that you are now looking at the side, and I think I am going to change up my pleats at least just a little bit and kind of lose the like same with pleat everywhere, because I think that is my problem. Like right now, my pocket is right here, whereas the side seam really should be like here. And so I think that by just kind of scooting the pleats over that little bit, getting a little less full over here, like spacing them out a little wider and then condensing them more towards the back, I think that is what I need to do to get my pocket in the right place and therefore alleviate how much fullness is there, adding the fullness in more towards the back. So just a little fix. I opened up this first set so that it had one more motif of the gingham, so like 10 total instead of 8. And then I kept this section the same. And then over here, I squinched it together so it only has 6 little squares instead of 8. And honestly, I think that that looks so much better. It's a little bit caught up in the back right now, but the fullness just looks much better over the back than it does over the front, or rather it looks really good over the front as well because it's not too full. So that's perfect. I need to do the same thing to the other side and base that in place, and then we can set it on the waistband. Well, this is annoying. I was working on flatlining the waistband for the skirt. You can see I've flatlined part of it here, and it started making a loud noise, the serger, and then it just decided that it really was not gonna like stitch anymore. And it seems to be something to do with either the belt or this little knob that the belt goes around, because if you look right here, I'm just going to press the pedal. If you look, the motor goes, that little knob turns, but the belt does not move the hand wheel, or at least barely. Whereas the hand wheel also, it turns, but I can feel a slipping. So I don't know if this belt has gotten too loose. Like it's not loose enough that I can get it off of this wheel, because I don't know how to take that off. I don't know how to take this piece off. But yeah, something here is not right. And this kind of like shifts a little. I think you can hear it more than you can see it. I don't know if that is something that shouldn't be happening. Honestly, I feel like there's been some issues ever since I got it back with the new motor like 2 years ago. But hopefully the same guy can take a look and figure out, does it need a new belt or does something here need tightening? Because past like looking in here, this is honestly beyond my experience. I was able to basically diagnose the problem, but unfortunately I can't fix the problem, which is really frustrating. I do have my other serger. It's a pain to thread, and of course I am not working with black right now. That black just lives permanently on this serger, but I need white or a lighter color at this point, so I guess it's time to rethread this guy and take this one in tomorrow, and hopefully it can be fixed pretty quickly and cheaply. So for my sleeve, I'm going to be kind of basing it off of this shape. So basically what's happening here is we've got this really like awkwardly long football shape, and underneath this we have all sorts of other stuff. So there's a couple poofs here of, I think they used tulle or net. I'm going to use organza as my plan, silk organza. And then there's also a whole bunch of trim right over here. So likewise, this picture right here on screen, this is another inspiration that I really like with the big ruffle, with the big trim. And so basically I'm going to have this sort of thing with lace at the bottom with one large organza poof underneath, and then it'll come together at the bottom of the arm. So I was looking at some of the laces that I have in my stash. This one is my favorite, I think, just because I love the tiered quality to it. Tiered lace like this was pretty popular at the time. So I think that would be really, really pretty. So I don't have a ton of this, but I'm pretty sure I have enough for this project. So yeah, I'm going to do a mock-up and see what this kind of comes to. So because I have so much of the gingham silk, I decided to just do my mock-up out of the gingham silk. I know, it's silly, but I also had a general idea that I think this will work. Basically, we're taking the shape that I was looking at in the book, and I just made it a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, I'm taller, and a little bit wider, I'm bigger. So this wound up being 9 inches tall at the widest, that includes the seam allowance and the hem, and then it was 35 inches long around the arm. And I think honestly that this might be too long. However, my plan is to cut scallops into this. So like the 9 inches will be, you know, the longest scallop, and then it will dip upwards with each scallop. So yeah, and then I just pinned the lace in. I pinned it pretty high up because of where the scallops plan to be. I did fold the seam allowance in, but obviously with the scallops it's gonna look really differently. I don't want to do that for a mock-up yet though. So anyway, so this is like the kind of the over sleeve, and then I've been trying to figure out the under sleeve because my original idea was just to use silk organza, but I'm worried that like this type of sleeve is not the type of sleeve that would have been worn over a Garibaldi blouse for daytime, because like if we look at this plate right here, this one does look like full-on evening dress. However, kind of looks like an 1850s evening dress. This plate I think was from 1863 or 64, so it almost looks like she's wearing an older evening dress for like now day wear, whereas usually what we see is more like this, where we have like a really tiny little ruffle, almost like it was the top ruffle and they took maybe the evening sleeve off, which is possible, but that does seem to be more common, whereas like what I'm doing is basically like full evening sleeve, which I could make removable. Like that's, you know, it's not that hard to make that removable, but I was kind of hoping to wear them both in the same day and not have a sewing machine with me. So that's if, of course, I even have time to make a Garibaldi blouse, because if I do the bustle dress, I'm not making the Garibaldi blouse. If I don't do the bustle dress, then I will have time to make the Garibaldi blouse. So I'm gonna put this into the arm's eye. The other ideas that I was potentially having instead of the organza was to do maybe like a net, for example. I could do like this point d'Esprit net, but it feels like it's not stiff enough, like it would be too droopy for anything. And then another idea would just be to do cotton organdy, but this feels very coarse compared to like evening silk, etc. So I am leaning towards just doing it out of the organza. And then I guess would be the question of, do I line the organza or do I leave it as is? My initial intention was to just leave it plain. Of course, that would show more of the arm underneath. I don't know that that necessarily bothers me. Or I could put something lightweight underneath. Now, probably what would be ideal was if I had like a voile or a batiste or something like that. I don't have that, unfortunately, so not an option. And we're going for the stash because, you know, it's hard to get fabrics now. So I think I'm going to do my mock-up out of the organza because, again, I have a lot of it, and also I don't have any other fabric that's going to act like this does, and see what that looks like. And that way, really, I'll have a sleeve mock-up that is basically my sleeve, just not very well finished. I kept looking at the organza next to like the white of the lace, and it just looked so gray that I actually decided let's go ahead and try the organdy. So this is the organdy right now. This is just like I've run gathering stitches top and bottom and put the ends together, and basically I cut this the exact same shape as this, except I did it 4 inches taller, so 13 inches at the total length as opposed to 9 inches. Same width, because I figured it would look really cute that way. I do think it looks really cute, so I guess it's time to put this in the bodice and see what this actually looks like all together. I am not obviously cutting off the rest of this lace because I don't know if this is the right shape. I don't want to waste any of this lace since I don't have a lot of it. I have just enough to do 2 sleeves, I think. But yeah, I think that looks really, really cute. So let's see what it looks like on. So against all odds, I have managed to lace myself up in this bodice, which honestly I should have filmed because it felt pretty impossible. And what feels even more impossible is the idea of getting out of this on my own. This is the back, just so you can see. It is spiral laced. I obviously have a bright green ribbon in there right now, which is not the actual ribbon I'm going to use, but the yellow ribbon that I had has flown the coop, and it wasn't the right shade of yellow anyway, so I need to get better yellow ribbon, but I don't even know where that first roll is. Seriously, I am losing everything lately. I don't know what it is. I turn around and just like something's gone. I think there's elves in my room or something like that. Now, as far as sleeve goes, I love it. I think that it's basically perfect. I do want to probably try the scallops on there, but even without the scallops, I think it looks really cute. One thing, however, that I am noticing, which is, you know, not good, is the gappiness in this. Do you see how gappy that is? Like, yeah, really gappy, really, really gappy. I've already piped and bound this neckline, so to fix that is like a really big deal. And I really don't want to have to do that, but I think I'm going to have to fix it. I'm going to do the other sleeve first and then see, like, is it still an issue? Because right now I am not feeling, I mean, no, it's there. I'm seeing it. That's so annoying. I'm still going to wait and do the other sleeve first and see what it looks like. Maybe it will at least feel less lopsided, because right now it feels lopsided. It feels like this side's falling off my shoulder, probably because of the sleeve. But that's really frustrating. The other thing that is definitely needs attention is this weird bit that's sticking out right here. Luckily, that has nothing to do with the binding. The binding here is actually fitting beautifully, just absolutely perfectly. So from about an inch down to like right here, this just needs to get smoothed out a little, like redo that seam. I don't know what happened there, but I knew in doing it that it looked weird, so I kind of anticipated that that would happen. The rest of the bodice is fitting pretty nicely though. I do wish that this kind of wrinkle bubble thing going on right here, I wish that wasn't happening, but there is no way at all for me to fix that without literally like undoing everything in this area, because basically it would be, I'd have to like take it out of this seam, and that would literally be taking apart everything. So yeah, that's not gonna happen. I'm gonna live with that wrinkle and hope that it doesn't drive me crazy. I didn't notice it in the monitor. I didn't notice it till I went and looked in the mirror and saw it. So hopefully that will be okay. But yeah, I really like this sleeve. Honestly, I'm so happy with the sleeve, and I'm really glad that it worked. It will have a little band at the bottom. I think I'm gonna actually do it out of the white, not out of the yellow. I'll probably just do a little band out of the organdy, just fit it around my arm so that it kind of keeps itself from falling down there. But yeah, I really like how the organdy looks. I think that was the right choice, so I'm glad about that. I love how the lace looks. Again, I am planning to do the little scallops up, but otherwise that looks dandy, so I'm very happy with that. I have also been examining kind of the skirt length. We definitely have some like droopage of hem length. Obviously you can't see that right now. I'll show you in the mirror in a sec, but yeah, that's gonna have to be addressed before I can even look at how the scallops are going to work on the hem. And I did also figure out kind of the little overlap of the back here. I put a little pin in so that I know where the overlap goes to, so that I can put the hooks and bars probably on there. And then that will also have the butt bow coming off from there. But yeah, it looks really overall pretty good. Obviously just gonna kind of tweak those few things, and we'll see about the neckline shoulder area, because that's the one thing that's pretty major and involves a lot of redoing that I don't want to have to do. So yeah, and then there is going to be trim and stuff on here too. I'm going to have ruche trim going along here. Same ruche trim is going to be at the bottom of the overskirt. I had been thinking of doing it on the sleeve, but I like the sleeve as is, so I don't think I'm gonna add the ruche trim to the sleeve. I might do piping along the scallops, but yeah, I like the sleeve actually. And I even like the length. I thought it would be too long, but I think it's a really nice length. I do wish it wouldn't feel like it was pulling off my shoulder, but that's not the sleeve's fault. So yeah, let's take a look at the hem of the skirt and I'll tell you what's going on there. So here is the skirt hem. Looks nice and even in the front, but you can see even just from like over here how it's dipping down. I think that's the first seam and something is not right there, and then it gets even worse over at the next seam. So that just has to be like evened out and just kind of swooped around. And then I don't know, it seems long. Like, I know that this is the longest part of where the scallops will be, but it seems really long considering there's going to be a ruffle underneath that. So I don't know. I think I might have to cut it just a little bit shorter so that we get a little bit more of the ruffle action going on. Though, of course, where it does the scallops dip up, then we'll see more of the ruffle. So I don't know. I'm going to stare at the fashion plate for a little bit and see just how deep that ruffle should be, because right now it seems like it'd be awfully small. I think this is a much better hem length for the longer parts of the scallops, and then the shorter parts would probably be 3 or 4 inches higher than that. I do worry, honestly, that I have too much skirt, but hopefully once I add the ruffles and have the trim on there and stuff, it will stand out even a little bit more and not look like so deep folds, basically, because that's what's happening, and it's making it look like parts are longer because it's so folded in on itself. But you can see this is what it looked like before, because I haven't touched that side, and then this is, I think, a much better length over here. So yeah, I will cut off the excess, leaving probably just enough to do like seam allowance for, I don't know, piping or just a really narrow hem or something. And then I can also shape the scallops, but I think I'm going to do that once it's on the dress form. Well, I was trying to cut scallops. You can see I've drawn the first scallop on here. I do think that I want the entire front panel to be one scallop. This is about 3.5 inches up right here. I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch down from there so that I have the seam allowance, because this is where I want the actual finish line to be. Hopefully this is good, because there's really no way to test this out. Like, I could make it, you know, smaller, but I want really big scallops. The only problem is that I can't cut more of them because there's a really cute cat on my dress. Maisie. Maisie. Oh, she's even purring. But yeah, I just have to kind of go for it and just cut the scallops and hope that it works. My plan is, once Maisie's not laying on here, to cut this first one and then use that as a template for the others. Of course, the problem is that really I should probably measure this out, because I want to make sure that they're just about even, and I don't know how many I can get around the skirt. But that brings us back to cat problem. Well, I'm honestly wondering if I shouldn't have gone higher than 3.5 inches for the little dips up like you see over here. But all the scallops are now cut. There's 9 in total, with this one centered over the front center and then 2 that end in an upwards point in the back. I just don't know that they're going to have much of an impact, because the skirt is just so full. I'm using this spool of ribbon right now to trace out the outermost, as in the cut line, of these scallops. You can see them right here. I don't think this is actually going to result in a perfect count of scallops going across. I think I'm going to kind of have a weird one underneath the arm. That doesn't really bother me, at least hopefully it won't bother me. It's not going to be shown because it's underneath the arm. But if I had tried to get it exactly, I would have had to find like some different form or eyeballed them or whatever. And it's just easier to use the spool of ribbon because it's pretty close. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Then I'm going to cut the scallops out, and then I'm not going to actually back this with anything because it seemed like it was the perfect airiness as just one layer. So I'm not going to like turn this right sides out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pipe all of these because I'm crazy. I'm piping them with the gold piping. So they will be 1/2 inch in smaller than this, but I think it'll look really good. And then the lace will be underneath the piping as well, so it'll come out from underneath. So I've just started putting the piping on, and even as I was starting to do it, it just felt really thick and kind of heavy. And I like the concept of having like the gold over here, but it's so thick and stiff, even just with the one layer of silk. The cording in here, I mean, it's yarn, that's what I use for my piping, but the yarn in the piping, it just makes it like stand up on its own. That's really not what I want from this sleeve. I think that's gonna stick out way too far for this sleeve. I want something just slightly more drapey. And I don't know, it also, I mean, it looks messy. Like, let's be honest, it definitely looks messy. I thought that I had been doing this very well, but this is like definitely cutting in on this scallop. It does not look great. I am going to try one other idea, which is to not do the piping, to maybe do right sides together with 2 layers of this and turn the scallops, and instead do a tiny little gathered ruched up trim around here that will mirror the ruched trim that's going to be on the neckline and on the skirt. So I'm going to cut tiny little strips. I'm talking like probably 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch wide, maybe max strips that will be pinked with a scallop pinking, and I'm gonna try applying that, and I wanna see what that looks like and if that's any better. So this is trim test number 2 for the sleeves. Right now what I've done is I've pinked 3/4 inch wide strips, meaning that it's 3/4 inches wide between like here to here, not the widest point, the narrowest point. And I've done that with my rotary cutter. And this is cross grain. I know you're seeing a bias up here. That was from when I cut the piping. This is now cross grain. So I am going to sew a few of these together and run gathering stitches to see like how gathered it needs to be and ruche that all up and see if I like it on the sleeves. So I don't know that this will make this any less stiff, but it does look cute. Like, I think that that would look cuter than the piping, just because it doesn't matter as much if this looks messy, because it is kind of inherently messy in its ruchedness. So yeah, I'm not mad at that. I am liking it better than the piping, and also it's going to pick up this same trim that's being used around the skirt and around the neckline. I think the neckline I'm going to do just slightly wider than this, maybe like 1.25 inches instead of 3/4 inch, and then the skirt's going to be quite a bit wider, maybe close to 1.75 inches or 2 inches. So yeah, I think that's going to look cute, and hopefully it won't look too messy. And you just have to see these guys. They do get along. It's adorable. Maisie has been sleeping in all of my fabric that I need to put away, and Cookie has decided she's sleeping too long and she needs to play. And I know they look like a void, especially Cookie. But yeah, you had to see these little cuties. Hello. Hello. Cookie is a void. How you doing, guys? Hi, Cookie. Yeah. Yeah. I just seen what you were doing with Maisie. Hey, sillies. Don't tell me you were just trying to take her spot. That's rude, Cookie. Also, somehow I trust you less around silk than I trust her with your wet nose. I'm second guessing things because I feel like it's too much when we add the lace in there too. Like, that just feels like a piñata, whereas this looks a little bit cleaner, but I also still don't like how this actually is. Maybe I shouldn't do anything at all, or maybe I shouldn't even do the scallops. I mean, my mock-up didn't have the scallops. I liked the idea of the scallops, but maybe I'm wrong. I have to think about this. The other options that I could do would just be to turn the edge like flat without the scallops and do either the piping or the ruching or both on this, like just flat. I don't like the both. I don't think that works at all. The ruching, again, still looks messy, especially next to the lace, but honestly, like pure piping with the lace, that looks nice. I think it does. I really do think that looks nice. I think I will maybe make this a little bit shorter because I had intended for the lace to be like farther up, basically for where this was going to hang down. So I think I'm going to cut the yellow gingham shorter so that I can basically just have it like where it would have come from the top of the scallops and then have the lace come from there. because I think that looks so much cleaner than like either of the options over here. Yeah, I just don't think those look very nice, and I think that this looks really quite polished. I decided that just so it doesn't go to waste, I'm going to use the narrow ruche trim that I had made for the sleeves for the neckline here. I don't think it looks too narrow. I will have 1 3/4 inch wide down at the hem, but that is still in the process of being made. I wish that I could layer this with lace. Like, I have a lace that is a little bit wider than what you're looking at here, but it's just too chunky. It doesn't go with this, which is what I'm using for right around the neckline here. That's going to be like hand sewn up in that like that. And it also, the one that is the good width here, it doesn't go with the sleeve lace. And unfortunately, I don't know where to get lace now. So that's something I'm gonna have to figure out, other than like really expensive lace on Etsy and stuff, because that's going to be really hard to just like kind of match, you know, motifs or delicacy basically, because like this is very delicate. The sleeve lace is honestly very delicate, even though it's very full, and the other one was just too chunky and cheap looking. So yeah, we'll see how that goes, but let's go ahead and put the sleeves together now. The way that this works is that I'm first applying the piping to the edge of the little like sleeve cap thingamabob, and then I'm folding it under and pressing it under, and then I'm sewing in the ditch with the lace underneath, and I'm matching up the edge of the lace to the edge of the folded over piping and seam allowance up here. And so that is kind of how this is being layered. And again, I'm stitching just in the ditch here, so you really hopefully don't see the stitches, and that turns into this. And then I'm going to sew the ends together, because right now all of this is being prepped flat, 'cause it's just a lot easier. And then I will run the gathering stitches through the top, and this will be set into the armscye along with the kind of undersleeve portion, which actually those are already done and waiting. So this was just a little folded over cuff that I put at the bottom. It's got gathering stitches up here at the top that are ready to be pulled up and fit into the armscye. I have sewn the trim around the neckline by machine, and something that I wound up doing here, because this trim goes directly across the eyelets and the boning channels here. So what I actually did, you can see I sewed a little ribbon onto the inside here so that all of the ruffles would still be stitched in place onto the ribbon. What's going to happen is that this one is going to have a little hook sewn on the underside. This is going to have a little thread bar, so this overlaps just slightly. This one only just goes to the end instead of going past the end, and they're going to connect like that and close that up. The sleeves are on and they're so cute. Honestly, I don't miss the scallops at all. I love this with just the little narrow piping and then the big fluffy. I think it looks so adorable. So that leaves, I guess, really the hem and all of the work that's going to go into the hem. So what's going to happen first is I like the piping so much on here, and I liked this technique of doing the piping and then being able to sew on the ruffle underneath by machine by stitching in the ditch. So I'm gonna take the work to make extra piping just so that I can save myself the hand sewing, and I am going to pipe the big scallops on the bottom. I'm gonna do that with the pale yellow because that will get the ruched trim of the wide like golden yellow. So that is the other thing that I'm doing right now. I'm cutting out strips of the golden yellow silk with the rotary cutters so that I can ruche these up and use them as the trim. But then I also have to cut the big ruffle for the skirt. And unfortunately, I did not pay close enough attention to how wide that ruffle needed to be when I had the dress on earlier. So I'm going to have to put the dress back on and get those measurements somehow, which is going to be really, really hard in the back of the dress. And also, of course, it's just difficult to put the dress on, period. I also still have to make the bow that goes onto the back of the waist of the bodice. So to be honest, I might do the bow first, and that way I'll kind of have like everything done except for the ruffle at that point. Like, I wonder if I could even do the trim. No, I think I'm going to wait to put the trim on because the trim will reinforce the stitching down of the scallops over the ruffle. So I think it'll be important to do that afterwards, just because it'll have like 2 stitch lines basically of holding that ruffle in place. It'll have around the piping, and then it'll also have just slightly higher up for the parts that are like the low scallop. It'll get reinforced so it won't be like trying to flap down from inside. So yeah, that is the plan of action on everything there. I'm still kind of hopeful that I can maybe finish it in this video, which means like the rest of today plus tomorrow for a little while plus Sunday for a little while. But we're getting so close and it's looking really, really cute. So yeah, I'm gonna go cut out a whole bunch more strips of the shirring and start shoring those up and figuring out like how much I actually need, because I think I need a ton of it. And I am also going to do more piping and put the piping around the bottom of the skirt. And I'm also going to make the sash part of the bow that goes on in back. I think that's probably going to be stitched in place to the bodice, but it may be that I do it with like hooks or snaps or something like that. I think it's going to be stitched though. So I also need to do the little hook and bar at the ruffle on the neckline, and I need to do 2 probably hooks and bars for the little sash overlap in the back. I have a lot of work to do. Oh, and I need to sew the like lace trim around the inside of the neckline as well. But I still think that maybe we can finish it. Well, we have just reached our first crap Joann's doesn't exist anymore moment. I lost thread chicken. I mean, I knew I was going to, but I lost by like a lot in the middle of doing these ruffles, which by the way, I do already have a bunch of them done, but that was just the little bits that I'd cut out first. So now I cut out 6 additional strands and was doing my gathering on these, and my thread ran out. And the problem is that I can't just go to Joann's to buy new thread. And yes, I'm watching Stephanie Canada in the background there. So I'm gonna call around to some local quilt shops tomorrow and see if I can like bring this in and color match, if they even have regular sewing thread. Keep your fingers crossed for me, because otherwise I'm gonna have to order from like Wawak or something online and just hope, because the 2 other fabric stores in this area that are like fabric stores that I know carry thread close super, super early every day, and I'm just never gonna be able to make it there. So a couple of updates on the bodice front. For one thing, I did put the hook, and then over on this side, I put the thread bar onto the trim. I don't even think you can see it very well, but that right there, that's a thread bar. And the other big thing that I did, if you remember how gappy that sort of back shoulder area was, I decided let's string a drawstring through. So that's what you're seeing right here. I literally just took, this is yarn because I don't have like thin ribbon, and I took this yarn and threaded it through where like the piping is folded down, like the gap between where it's sewn by machine and then where it's stitched down. It's threaded right through this channel area over here. And over on this end, it's just knotted, and then I've sewn through the knot a whole bunch of times. Same with on the other side. And that way this drawstring goes all the way from here all the way to the center front and will allow me to kind of tighten up the neckline if it wants to feel it all gappy. And then obviously the other thing that I've done is I've gone and I've added the lace all around the neckline. So here's what it looks like from the outside. I actually was able to do this by machine. I stitched in the ditch again to catch all of that by machine. So that is great. And that means that the bodice is entirely done except for like the bow attachment. Oh, and I guess I still haven't done those couple of hooks and bars that go on the waist here, but I'm waiting until after I put the bow on to do those hooks and bars. So despite how close I am with this project, I am just not going to be able to finish it in this week / this week's video. There's just too much still that has to be done and that I know will take a while. So like the next step, for example, is putting everything on again and figuring out how long that ruffle needs to be for the skirt, and then like making the ruffle, you know, cutting it out, hemming it, attaching it, putting the trim all along the scallops and the skirt, making the trim and then putting it there. I also still wanted to do those rosettes everywhere, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in that next video, but I had a complication with that, so that still needs to happen and basically happen from scratch. So yeah, and the reason that I've decided to not like mega push myself to try and finish it today is also that I've realized that I can't make the bustle dress that I had intended to make or had hoped to make for the Victorian Festival, and it has nothing to do with time whatsoever. It has to do with the fact that I thought that I had a lot more of this pale yellow silk than I actually do. I only have about 2 yards of this left, and I was gonna make a skirt out of that. for a bustle dress, for a natural form era bustle dress that takes probably like 6 yards of fabric. So that project is going to have to be pushed off until, frankly, after the next time that I go to the fabric district, because I need to get more of hopefully this exact silk. It's from Home Fabrics. Like, I mean, that was years ago, but I'm hoping that they still have it. Because yeah, I can't make it. And I thought about using the goldenrod for it. A, it doesn't go quite as well as the pale yellow silk, and B, I don't have enough of that either. Once I do cut out the ruffle for this, that ruffle, I did some like loose math on it yesterday, and that ruffle is going to take like multiple yards of fabric, and I only have 5 and a bit yards left to begin with at this moment. So I don't have enough fabric to make the bustle dress, unfortunately. I am bummed about it, but I also know that sanity-wise, it's a good thing. That like I'm not going to be mega pushing myself. However, what that does mean is that I may possibly be able to make the Garibaldi blouse to go with this ball gown bodice. I don't know for certain, and I mostly say that because at this moment I don't have the fabric to make it. So I think I'm gonna go on Dharma Trading and see if I can get like a really nice kind of light fluffy voile and get that here and, you know, be able to, it's a relatively easy project, knock on wood. So I'm kind of thinking that the next 2 videos that you are going to get with the lead up to the Victorian Festival are going to be, A, I have decided that I do have enough fabric left of the green and blue plaid. I'm gonna make myself a ball gown bodice for the contra dance on Saturday night for Victorian Festival. And I'm honestly probably gonna use like this same pattern because it's done, and just make that hopefully pretty quickly. And B, I'm going to be finishing up this project and hopefully making the Garibaldi blouse to go with it. So that's what you're going to see in the next couple weeks instead of a bustle dress. I'm not going to drive myself crazy. This should be a lot better for my sanity as well. And yeah, that's gonna be it for this video though. So I'm not quite where I was hoping to be, but I am still really liking this project. Oh yeah, I still have to make the butt bow for this as well. So there's still quite a bit left to go on this that will go in that next video. Hopefully you've liked this so far though. If you did like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, usually with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays, and sometimes with additional costuming or sewing related content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my awardee level patrons, Jean and Kim. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!